dinner. And, anyways. All right. So this is my last lecture. Maybe ever, but at least until further notice. And so I made it short and sweet, and hopefully get my message across to you. I've been teaching for a couple years, and this is how it ends. 7 students out of what started as about 30. And so I've learned a lot as I've taught some interested and some disinterested students. And I appreciate you coming to my last final lecture. So I'll share the excitement. There are 10 slides, no pictures, no backgrounds. And keep it simple and direct. You know, I usually decorate it with flashy, blinking lights to keep your attention. But hopefully the message keep your attention. Today, at a university near Milwaukee, where my one of my best friends teaches college, enrollment just a little higher than Delta College. There was a gunman, and the campus was locked down today because of that. My friend sent me an email immediately when it happened at noon, or 12:08, and then I checked on Twitter and the web for reactions from the media and social media. The public, as I gauged it from the media and social media, did not react too strongly to this. I think we're still in the wake of the Boston incident. Wouldn't it scare you, though, if it happened here?
It would scare me, but I mean, it's like, what I'm saying is, like, everybody else would be like, oh, wow, just another, you know. Like,
there was an outpour for Boston, though.
For sure. And then I was watching something, and the guy was saying how, like, it's almost similar to how things were, like, blowing up in the Mideast. Like, how things are, like, over there it's almost normal, blowing up here and there. I feel like it's almost like we're becoming like that now.
So,
like, gunmen coming in, like, just wolves and, like, these areas.
Just another guy.
Right.
And even if we read the tweet, maybe we thought it was in reference to another gunman on campus. Maybe we thought, oh, this isn't happening today. That was from last week, probably. And in fact, it was. I asked the question, why do things like this happen? In fact, it has happened before, and maybe we are becoming immune to it, or maybe we lack empathy. And that's a psychological study that we could do, this lack of empathy, where somehow, this is what confuses me, which is why a study is necessary. Somehow Americans are drawn to the Boston tragedy, and I think we all can somehow relate, or the majority of the public relates to the Boston tragedy, even though we've never been there. It's strange that I bring this to you all. It's very, very similar to this college. You could not get any closer, I think, to a campus and group of students than this university, but none of you heard about it, and none of you are really probably impacted too much until it really comes directly to our campus. But I want to know why things like this happen, and that's why I study sociology. So yesterday, this is one that you know about. There was a bomb in the city of Boston. A public gathering, a sporting event, was bombed, and at least 3 people were killed. The media reacted, social media reacted, the public reacted. And who was affected by this event? Who's affected by the Boston bomb?
Everybody was there. All the witnesses got bombed.
People got hit by the shrapnel, they're affected. People got killed, they're affected. People that are there freaked out. The families. So someone's family in California who had a family who was a runner was affected because there's that family tie. Was there anyone else affected?
Like when I found out about the little kid who was killed, that affects you as a parent too. So I mean, it really does matter.
So in the previous slide, even though the campus was a lot the same, there was not too much of a connection there, but because of the Boston thing with the parental connection, maybe that's a stronger psychological bond there, and a tie that you make with parenting is stronger. You know, we see the kid, there's a lot of sympathy for the kid that gets killed, and very little sympathy maybe for some college working stiffs like yourself. So there can be arguments made who's affected more, but maybe all of us across America are affected. I can't remind you enough how much this is a sociological slide and a lesson. You know, the point a lot of this presentation is there's a school with a gun at it, there is a bomb in Boston, and we see these things displayed in the public through media and through reactions, and we feel things. And then I think it's very hard for students to come to a class and understand that this class, that's what we study. But you can think, do I study this in my nursing class? Do I study it in my math class? Do I study it in my criminal justice class? Criminal justice gets close, but the science of criminal justice is slightly different than the science of sociology. So these are things that we study. And it's important to ask these questions of why did this happen? Who is affected by this event, or else if nobody's studying or addressing these types of things, then they will continue to happen. And it's just a challenge in this lecture, being my last lecture, to really think deeply about this, because I can't say enough. I'm not saying that sociologists are the best people on earth. We all have flaws. But as you go about your day and you work hard at your jobs and you care for your families, to just remember that if as Jeffrey Hawkins said in my documentary, if you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. So we have to address these, not as just citizens, but also as scholars. We have to look at this sort of scientific perspective. Otherwise, it's just a best guess. It remains a hypothesis if we don't try to support or negate it.
And the FBI, sorry, and is there really a BAU? Analysis unit?
What's that?
Is there a BAU of the FBI, like the behavioral analysis unit, like?
Oh, probably, yeah.
Would they be sociologists, or do they have a?
They'd probably be psychologists and psychiatrists, very close to sociology. And sociologists get hired to do types of analysis for crime, but sociologists are more going to be looking for almost social causes of the crime. Like, so the guy who shot up Newtown, which is one of these slides, he's going to be examined. If I think that guy killed himself, but if he were still alive, he would be examined by a psychologist and a psychiatrist. But sociologists would also look at his behavior in school. Did he have friends? Was he part of social networks? Was he influenced by the media, or was he influenced by his family? Those sorts of things are the sociologists. What's going on inside his head is going to, yeah. And psychiatrists also use medicine, so the culture of America is to treat with medicine most of the time. You know, sociologists aren't medical doctors, and so I think the culture, this is sort of an editorial, but the culture of America is to address it with psychiatry, being that's a medical doctor. We don't have credibility most often as sociologists to come in because we're not lawyers and we're not doctors, and so we come in as scientists, and I don't think we get to credibility. It's a fairly new discipline, and it's a pretty soft science, but you know, I just kind of keep standing on my soapbox trying to convince you all how important it is, and someday maybe the FBI will have a sociology unit. I mean, I would think that it's appropriate. Of course, you have to get taxpayers to fund it, right, because it's a government program. But it's pretty political. You know, they're going to have their psychiatrists because they can tell people that that's valid. so we keep making great sociological studies. I'm convinced them. The same is true also with academia. I mean, there is a psychiatry unit probably in the FBI. There are psychology, Carroll University, where the gun was. That's big on psychology. Very small probably on sociology. The funding for sociology and academia is also pretty small because we just don't have the credibility that I think the discipline deserves. Who knows, maybe more things like this happen. It's either going to strengthen psychology and psychiatry, or it's going to maybe people are going to start listening to sociologists.
I say maybe people will start listening to sociologists because obviously us treating people with medication is not
Right. And there's too many of them.
Even the people that are committing crimes, you know, it's like there's still probably a lot of them are on meds. So
you go to a therapist, like I see the therapist right now, and the first thing they ask you is what medications are you on? I don't want medications.
Right.
So they almost don't want to see you because you're not willing for them to put you on medication.
So like you walked in today and sort of the first thing we talked about when you said, I don't have a charger, the first thing I as a sociologist respond with is, who are your friends and which of your friends has a charger? So the same thing is true when you go to a counselor. You go in and they're trained to say, what medications are you on? A sociologist, if you came to me as a sociologist counselor, you walk in, I'm having problems here, but I would say, who are your friends and what are they doing for you? What are your support systems and that sort of thing?
I think that's how like therapy should be instead of medicating people, because I think you should study the behavior of the person instead of trying to fix it.
In relation to groups and
Yeah, they
other
need to figure out
individuals.
why you act the way you do or why you feel the way you do.
Like,
We were talking about my no social network. I don't have the support system that other people might have, and that's why I have a hard time with things. But somebody else who has a lot of friends might have.
And then we can also say the same thing for people who advance in academia or who advance in the professional realm, who grab more wealth and have success in the business world, or any type of thing. Social capital is what I told to you, the term for the class. And I mean, social capital, is that the most important form of capital? It could be, you can make arguments for that. But yet we all study financial capital so much in the business school. It's so important because it's a capitalist society. I mean, you can't escape it. If this were a socialist society, then sociology, and I'm not saying there should be a socialist society at all, but the fact that you have the stigma behind social and society, in America, that we need to focus more on the financial capital and the markets that are on Wall Street. That's just where our interests are as a group of Americans. And it will continue to be that way until something changes it. And heaven forbid, crime changes it. I'm not advocating for that. Last week, there was a song. It was on YouTube. So as you can see in my slides, I just want to point out here I have on campus, in the city, and on YouTube. As sociologists, we need to make sure to examine location. One of the classes I've taught is global sociology, or global studies. And this whole idea, I've mentioned it, I'm on one of my rants about borders. And as we go global, the business, the trade is going global, and our communication is going global. It's a really interesting study or discipline to look at what it means to be in place. What does place mean? Where you're on an online class, where do you actually go to school? Because school used to be so tied to geography, physical place. So I put those to remind you how important place is in sociology. Well, this song was on YouTube, and the song was Accidental Racist by Brad Paisley and LL Cool J. We talked about it last week. And it's probably going to sell 95,000 copies in its first week, according to Spin. I didn't have the actual numbers, but they estimated almost 6 figures of sales. So some people bought it. They used their financial capital. The media responded. The social media commented. And as in class, we discussed it. But how did the song change people? Or did it at all? We talked about a bomb and how that affected people. How does this song change people, if at all? then you can tell me it doesn't affect anybody.
You mean like it's affected Brad Paisley, Blue Jay, obviously, because they have people angry at them now. And I guess it's changed people's views of them too.
You think it divided them? Because you said they have people angry at them. They also have people that love the song. There seems to be very few people middle ground, although we had some in here. It doesn't really matter. Which is, that's a stance. But do you think it's divisive at all?
Yeah, I think it is a little bit. Like, I guess any kind of time that you always have somebody who might be indifferent to it, or somebody who absolutely loves it, or you have people who absolutely hate it. And there's really no in between. Yeah.
Do you think that's representative of racism as well? Are you either racist or not racist, or can you be halfway racist?
I think it's more prejudice than racism. Like, you have prejudice towards certain people, but not be completely racist.
I don't think there's no in between it, but I think it is 38.
It's all or nothing?
Yeah, I mean, because how can you say, oh, I'm not racist, I have 1, 2, 3 black friends. If you can count your black friends, then, or, well, I got 5 white friends, I think either you is or you ain't.
Or
you might have them 5 or 3 because that's who you work with and they really not your friends, but people consider coworkers friends, instead of just saying my coworker, and you have to deal with them at work, so somewhere in your mind you say they're your friends so that you won't seem racist or something. But I don't think there's no in between. I think either you is or you ain't.
Sometimes people will say something and they'll clause it with a but, and they will say,
to try to make it not look so bad. Yeah,
I'm totally not racist, but
yeah.
look at all the people that are shooting each other in the inner city. They're all black. Facts are facts.
Yeah.
They try to back it up with the facts. And so, that example would be racist. Is there any way that you could say something in the middle of racist? Say like, no, I'm not racist, but no.
But there goes that point.
Still that black or white thing. You can never escape that pun of racism. It's a black and white issue.
I'm not racist, but I hate it. There's a difference. Like, I have issues with certain people, but it's not because of what race they are, so it could be a prejudice thing. Like, today, some woman was letting her kids scream at her and run all over. We were at the doctor's office, run all over, walk all over everybody. Literally over people. And I was upset at her, and she just happened to be Mexican, but it wasn't because she was Mexican, it's because she's bad mother. So I guess it's more of a prejudice thing than
How does that become a bad mother, though? I mean,
you don't let your kid walk on people. She just sat there and watched her kid walk on people.
I don't just necessarily mean you're a bad parent, though. I mean,
It
you
speaks.
just let a kid do what they want to do.
No, it speaks to something in the song that Brad Paisley said he wore the Confederate flag. So it speaks to the discussion that we had, where say, look at him, just wearing the Confederate flag make him a racist. So we had that discussion last week. Does that behavior make that person a bad mother, or does it categorize them, or this? So we discussed it, and how did the song change people? I feel at least it opened up a discussion, and that's about the only positive thing that I can say about that song. So I started off by saying today there was a gun, and yesterday there was a bomb. Last week there was a song, and last year there was a massacre. In December, 26 people died. 20 of those were children ages 6 and 7. 10 30-round magazines, semi-automatic Bushmaster, and a 22 model XM15 rifle, which I think is pretty popular, and bullets for 2 handguns and a shotgun. This man went into the school and massacred children last year. The media reacted, social media reacted. Some people bought it. That was from the last slide. But what was the outcome of this massacre? There was a reaction Was there any outcome? Was there any sea change of behavior or policy or what? You think it made it worse? How so?
As far as like guns and we all have rights to steal. Like I feel like it's more like people are taking advantage of that, and like when people are seeing that, it's just like listening to a violent rap song. Like, you know what I mean?
Do you feel like the NRA dug their heels in deeper and they said, you're really not taking our guns away now, and don't try to use this as an excuse?
I mean, in a way, kind of is, yeah.
So
I just
this,
think it's made it worse. Look at everything that's happened since then.
Yeah,
I think it's justified for people who have been thinking about it,
when you say everything that has happened, what do you mean?
like the stabbings at the college last week, the bombings, there's been a couple other school shootings.
when you talk about Milwaukee, we're all distracted by all this other chaos. There's more chaos going on, like just layered. And it's a hot one.
Do you think it's important to try to stop these things from happening in the future?
Worse.
Do you think it's one of the most important things, or do you think the price of gas is more?
I think we need to be working on this because
Yeah.
I mean, that's 20 kids that are our future who are no longer there. I mean, your kids are your future, and if we're not protecting them, then what are we doing?
What do we think about most during the day? Do we think about how to prevent school shootings, or do we think about how hard our finals are?
Yeah, we don't focus on like what is actually important. We're kind of superficial, I guess, that way.
We meaning Americans? Why do you think that is?
Well, not even media, like we were talked up, like we were, a free country, like we're so great, we're awesome. We're not, slowly.
You're taught in school that the government will take care of you, so you don't have to worry about that kind of stuff. But you really do.
So 6 years ago today, on campus, a gunman killed 32 people plus himself, making the death toll of 33 at Virginia Tech. Lived in a dormitory on campus and kept to himself. So 6 years ago today, at Virginia Tech, 33 people died at the hands of one man. And today, there was a gunman on a campus, and as you mentioned last week, there were stabbings. So in 6 years, have we fixed the problem?
I don't think that
Why not?
will ever be fixed because we have people like the NRA who will get other people riled up thinking that you have to keep your guns.
NRA has money.
So are you both alluding to the fact that maybe, or the opinion, or the hypothesis that maybe less guns would prevent this?
I don't think so. I just think that guns are too easy to come by. I don't personally like guns. I'm not a fan of them. People use them for the wrong things, but I think that it's like drugs. If they're gonna get them, they're gonna get them.
What were you going to say something about guns? You seem to say that no, less guns is not going to help anything.
Oh, yeah, I said, no, I don't think,
Why not?
because, it's not the guns, it's the people.
Yeah.
So you can take away all our guns, but he still got his,
So like in the movie, Michael Moore's movie Bowling for Columbine, he goes up to Canada, for example. They got all kinds of guns. They love to shoot stuff, but there's very few murders.
Yeah, it's not the guns, it's killing the people as people.
So why is the peaceful Canadian so much more subdued than angry Americans? Any opinions that you try to figure out? Yeah.
So why are the Americans so angry?
Like, I think it all comes down to, like, here in the U.S., we have a really hard time with mental health, and people who need the mental health care can't get to the mental health care. And I think, like, in Canada, with their healthcare system the way it is, it's easier for them to get the proper care that they need.
So this is also an appropriations thing, similar to the comment made about NRA having money. if we have no funding to either get people mental health care or more education or whatever we need to do, then we can't do it. Does that seem to be an accurate statement that a lot of this is based on money? We need a culture change in this nation to stop shooting people, and whether it's less guns, more public mental health, or whatever we need to do is going to take money. But the only people with money are the people that love guns. Is this an accurate statement, or is this not? What do you think? Because it's true, the NRA has a ton of money and they love guns.
But they have more influence because they have money.
Yeah, because they lobby.
Isn't there a big lobby against guns? I mean, can't Newtown people just kind of drum up some anti-gun stuff? And
They have been, but they don't have they haven't been around forever like the NRA has. They don't have the money or the influence as far as government goes, or the access to the government like the NRA would.
so here's a thought about how we can prevent this from happening again. And it's something that my former CEO conveyed to me, which I thought was pretty profound. And he's not the most profound dude in the world, but here we're talking about 6 years ago there was a massacre on campus, and it happens every week now. And we can't stop it without defeating the NRA or without money to fund public health or something like this. But what my former CEO said was, and this is all true, 20 years ago, people loved to smoke. Everywhere people smoked. People smoked all the time. And now, very few people smoke. And you can't smoke in a bowling alley, and you can't smoke in a restaurant. People used to smoke all the time. And now people very rarely smoke. Maybe a majority of you do, because probably the people that smoke the most are first-year college students. But smoking has almost gone away. And big tobacco has a ton of money, probably more than NRA. So what do you think about that? Why did smoking, which is bad for your health, just like shooting people in the head is, why did smoking diminish even without, even while big tobacco companies have all the money? Why did that, you think people would say, oh, shooting people in the head is bad, we should stop doing that. NRA says, no, here's more money for guns. Okay, I'll take the money, I love the guns, right? In this case of smoking, I love to smoke, okay? Here's the big tobacco. Here's more cigarettes. You love them, right? Yes, I do. Wait, all of a sudden people stop smoking. What happened? How so?
Like public areas, kids walk around and
So what if we did that to guns? What she's saying is you can't smoke in a classroom anymore. You used to literally be able to smoke in classrooms. Yeah, up until probably the 80s. You used to be able to smoke in restaurants, bowling alleys. So you used to be able to carry a gun here, there, everywhere. What if we said no guns almost anywhere except the police department? What if we did that?
And they kind of do have it like that, but you can see me outside smoking, or you can see me if I sit here and light up a cigarette, but can you tell if I got a gun on me?
plus like
I
gun
mean,
is part of your
that's, you can see that, but you don't know if I have a gun or not, But if I sit here and pull out a cigarette and light it up, you can say, oh, no, you can't do that here,
I would say that if you pull out a gun.
Right. Right. But what I'm saying is the smoking thing is more out in the open. You don't just come into place, all right, I got a gun, y'all. Everybody, I just want y'all to know, So, I mean, they kind of, because you can't have guns within so many feet of school. You can't have, I mean, really they have limitations on where you're supposed to carry the gun. But not unless you walking through a metal detector or something everywhere you go, who would know?
Well, if we put metal detectors in schools, wouldn't it help cut down on crime?
They have them.
Yeah, like not all of them. Like you can walk into Delta, you don't have to pass through a metal detector.
Yeah. Again, back to this. This guy went and killed 33 people and Do we have metal detectors here at Delta, or could some dude do that right now?
Yeah.
And it's scary to think about it and talk about it. And I don't want to be fearful in my last lecture, but really, what are we doing to stop this? I mean, what are we doing? And I'm not saying, I'm not even saying that I have the answer, but it doesn't appear that we've done anything. They did something with the cigarettes. You can't smoke anywhere.
Well, I think
Yeah,
that's
right.
like we were talking about, I think part of that problem is the fact that the government's taxing cigarettes to the point where you can't afford it anymore.
Guns are way more expensive. Here's something to think about. There are places that will not hire you if you smoke cigarettes. Okay, I literally took a drug test yesterday. It's the first time I've ever taken it randomly. They just gave me like drug test. I was like, wow. But so I can't work someplace if I take drugs. There are a lot of places that you cannot work if you smoke cigarettes. Why don't they say that we're not going to hire you if you have a gun?
How do they know?
Just register. They're going to search the gun registry.
I just read an article about this actually, and the reason that they cannot do anything about the guns is because people realize their Second Amendment rights, and that by creating a gun registry, it is like going against your rights as a human to be able to bear arms and to have privacy and not have the government. I have the right to live.
I know even when my daughter was either in elementary or middle school, they were giving away like gun locks. The school, they sent the sheet home and asked you, you know, how many, and then it was kind of like, okay, are they trying to see who has guns or not registered? You know what I mean? Because you could sit and say, okay, I need 3, but what if only one of your guns are registered? You know, why do you need 3?
I didn't think we were doing it.
I mean, some people have more than 3. I mean, I guess it depends on the lifestyle that you have, and you know, I think everybody should have more. I mean, protect your household if you need to.
So we need to answer this question. We can do it the best we can through a sociological lens, and I'm going to continue to work on it throughout my life until it's fixed, so I encourage you to do that as well. The day you came to class, you're on campus, that's your place. You is you. You're not a sociology major, you're tired and bored. You may think this class is pointless. How do institutions affect your daily life? This leads back to a question that I already brought up, which is, we have these tragedies. A guy could really come in here right now. But we have not done anything. We're more concerned about what we had for dinner, that I'm stupid, and that this class is worthless because it does not contribute to your major. These things tend to be, throughout the past 15 weeks, priorities over this idea of, well, how am I being affected by this institution or this country or capitalism or gun rights or smokers' rights or poverty or anything else.
Does Delta do like lockdown drills? I mean, I've never seen them. Do you know? I know they don't fire in tornado, but like, why doesn't a college do a lockdown drill?
They do lockdown drills, but it's not like students aren't just training staff.
Oh, see, I've never.
Even if
I
they
feel
did,
like they should.
even if they did a single lockdown drill, how much of a priority is your safety against gun violence versus your graduation? This institution and the American institution of capitalism convinces you that you need to come here and your #1 priority needs to be to graduate and get a job. Even if we did a practice safety thing, like, half the people are going to be like, this is so annoying. Anytime you do a fire drill, right? You're like, this is the worst, especially in the winter. And what if you forget your phone? You have to stand there with nothing. Be so bored, tired, bored. This class is pointless. My major is important. I need a job. These are things at the top of our priority list. And this institution places very little importance on probably our safety,
We put very little importance on fancy. Like my family, most of the teachers here don't care about your family. Don't realize that you have other responsibilities besides class too.
Now, I won't go in depth too much on that, but I will make one response point just to think about it. It's interesting that you say the teachers don't care about the family, about your family, and I might have a discussion about how it's an institutional management of people with families. Just to continue a little bit, this is not to argue at all at your point or anything. Just to shorten because we have limited time. I think a lot of times students forget that professors are tools, like just tools. And this is a sociological mini lesson that think about how institutions affect your daily life, not just how the school affects your life, but continue to remember that the institution affects the people that affect your life. So when you don't get a raise at your job, it is not necessarily that your boss doesn't like you. It could be because the institution you work at has told your boss to be a jerk to you and not give you a raise. So we have to consistently remember that institutions are a big driving force. So I appreciate that point you made because it's something to take with you as you leave this course. How much institutions affect you directly and indirectly. It's a very important thing to think about. So tomorrow, when you go to work in the city, in the suburbs, you're not paid enough, you're tired, you're stressed, and you may be in debt. So how does this system affect your daily life? Same way in class. You don't like the class, you don't get enough out of it. Some of the comments on the radio, my haters say I didn't learn anything. This class was boring. Okay, my work is boring. I don't get paid enough, and I'm in $90,000 debt. So with those things on my mind, how does that system affect my daily life? What does it make me think about? And what does it make me not think about?
I guess it really kind of just keep you stressed constantly. But it doesn't give you time to sit there and think about, well, how can we prevent what we need to feel real better?
So back to empathy, when we're driving around and we're stressed and we're thinking about our $90,000 debt and somebody cuts us off, we are instantly angry at that person, correct?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I would say your class is like first, I believe, because I got hit one night leaving here. And then, yeah, last week when I left here, some guy ran me off the road again. And that made me want to kill somebody. I thought my car was going to fall apart after that.
Okay, so perhaps you were stressed out and maybe that person actually had a seizure and you're angry at them because of your stress. People get upset all the time in road rage. We think about road rage, well, let's think back to the gun violence. Say it's the people that are doing it, not necessarily the guns. Well, it's the people that have road rage, not necessarily the cars. There's cars all over the world. So where do we have the most road rage? I don't know the answer to that, but maybe it's America. So the systems affecting our daily lives, increasing our stress, getting us distracted, that we don't care about the person behind that wheel, that he just had a seizure and may be dying right now. We're angry because he cut us off because of the stress. We're so distracted with these things in America that we don't have time to fix the major problems. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, okay? So when you go to work, you're thinking more about your wage and your daily routine, more so than, wait a minute, I make $12 at Walmart and they make billions, like, how am I actually going to flip the system? Or are you just going to put your tail between your legs and just be mad about it every day? Never do anything.
I think you'd rather think like that. You don't like a
Say your point exactly.
And that's this class, and I say it continuously, and then people, I hate going back to the rate my professor, my haters. But I say this continuously. People go back home and they sit down and they watch TV and they go, "Oh boy, he just doesn't. He's crazy." And they just continue to go to work and continue to be mad, and nobody hears what I'm saying. Like,
nobody knows how. I mean, they would love to have a better life in the way like you're saying and stuff, but like nobody knows how to.
Nobody knows how to try it.
Well, like where would you start? Like I go to college, I go to work. Like, of course I want better. Of course I want to be paid more than like triple the amount of minimum wage. But like nobody knows how to. They always think like they go to school, that'll get them that career. So they're trying to focus on their day-to-day life so they can get that life in 10 years from now.
On an individual basis, people
Right.
want their own success, and as I had here, people want better clothes for themselves. They want to drive a nicer car. You don't go to college because you want to buy a nice car for your neighbor. Send your kids to college. You don't want to go to college to send other people's kids to college. I mean, I'm doing that right now, but nobody does that. But nobody does that.
How are you sending?
I don't have kids, and I started a foundation that gives scholarships to kids that are not mine, and I continue to raise money to send other people's kids to college. So you ask, how do you do that? That's how you do it. But nobody knows that. You don't have a class. No, and you don't have a class that tells you how to do that. And unless you all of a sudden are just sitting there thinking, well, that would be a good idea, then you're not going to do that. And I don't get any benefit out of that. So we're continuously taught growing up, do stuff for yourself, go to school, graduate, get your degree, get your money. Nobody ever tells you.
Well, we can sit there and like, I've thought about ways, like with my kids' Head Start, you sit there and think about ways to prevent something from happening. But me as a person, like I don't have, as you're talking about, like the social capital to actually be able to do something because I don't know enough people who would be able to help me do that. Like I don't know enough, I don't have enough contacts to be able to pay for the change that I need.
So it's another response that I have to my haters. This is my motto for 2013. Haters gonna hate. So I go back to them and I mean, if they say they didn't learn anything, if you don't know how to make change, when you go home, don't post a negative comment about me. Just pick up a book and start reading it and start figuring it out. I mean, you just have to keep learning. If your questions aren't answered, if you don't know how to make the change yet, figure it out. That's all I can say. This is my last week. I can't do it for you. You got to figure it out. You know, I'm doing all I can to help you graduate. Maybe you'll get a little social capital with your diploma, you know, or this education, your knowledge will springboard you. Throw a little fertilizer and carbs in. Go do great things. But if we continue to focus on these things, send our kids to school. Buy better clothes for me, driving this car. We're never going to worry about the other person. We're never going to worry about the school shooters because I'm not the school shooter and it wasn't my kids. And I'm trying to live the American dream. I don't care about your American dream. That's the kind of the way we approach it. So when I say, how do you live out the American dream, think about yourself, right? I'm going to get mine, I'm going to graduate, I'm going to get my job, get my raise, I'm going to send my kids to college. My boss calls for kids for 401k. I better clothes, I'm going to get a promotion. I need to drive a nicer car. My girlfriend's bought a brand new Malibu. Payments are like twice what mine are. I mean, we just got to think about ways to shift what we care about. Unless, and I'm not preaching to you, this is not unless you think this is great, go ahead and continue. By all means. And I'm your patsy because I'm trying to give it away. You just go ahead and take it from me. Okay, so find more people like me and stomp on them. So how are you going to live out the American dream? Is it going to be for yourself in these 3 ways, or are you going to try to make change, make a difference? It's up to you. So you get your raise and you put your kids to college and you're 60 and you're retired and you have your pension, which is more than my salary, which a lot of people do right now. And then another racist song comes out. And another school gets on lockdown. and another city is bombed. It will continue to happen. So, remember what you learned here in this class and do something. That's all I can leave you with in this class is just, it's going to continue to happen. I was in a class called Religion and Revolution in 2001, September 11th, and the city was bombed. And I sat there in my class, and I just thought, okay, I'm where I should be. I'm in a class called Religion and Revolution, and these fundamentalist people who congregate potentially around a religion, or at least potentially congregate around a government that is based upon religion, just took down the city. So we have to take a look at this and try to prevent it from happening again. I didn't sign up for the Peace Corps, I didn't sign up to be president or whatever, but I just did whatever I could do. That was to continue to go through school, graduate, go through more school, get up here and be able to convey to you the message that it's going to continue to happen again unless you do something. So whatever you can do, whether it's start up a nonprofit or join the Peace Corps or become a professor that's going to try to influence more people to do good stuff, do whatever you, or be a nurse that goes and works for some nurse people that save people. You know what I'm talking about? There's two types of nurses. You can go be a nurse and make money, or you can go wherever they need nurses and go work for the Red Cross or whatever and not make nothing. So it's your choice. Remember what you learned and then do something. Whatever you do something. If you're all going to do stuff, how do you make more money than I do? Probably already. Just remember that that's not the only thing. You gotta care about this part of it. All right. So eat a few subs, and then I'll just tell you how to fine tune your final paper, and then we'll talk about what next week means. All right. And I'll shut this off. Maybe we can listen to another song. But hopefully the message keep your attention. Today, at a university near Milwaukee, where one of my best friends teaches college, enrollment just a little higher than Delta College. There was a gunman, and the campus was locked down today because of that. My friend sent me an email immediately when it happened at noon or 12:08, and then I checked on Twitter and the web for reactions from the media and social media. The public, as I gauged it from the media and social media, did not react too strongly to this. I think we're still in the wake of the Boston incident. Wouldn't it scare you, though, if it happened here?
It would scare me, but I mean, it's like, what I'm saying is, like, everybody else is like, oh, wow, just another, you know.
There was an outpour for Boston, though.
For sure. And then I was watching something, and the guy was saying how, like, it's almost similar to how things were, like, blowing up in the Mideast. Like, how things are, like, over there, it's almost normal, blowing up here and there. Like, it's almost like we're becoming like that now.
So,
like, gunmen coming in, like, just blowing like these areas.
Just another guy.
Right.
And even if we read the tweet, maybe we thought it was in reference to another gunman on campus. Maybe we thought, oh, this isn't happening today. That was from last week, probably. And in fact, it was. I asked the question, why do things like this happen? In fact, it has happened before, and maybe we are becoming immune to it, or maybe we lack empathy. And that's a psychological study that we could do, this lack of empathy, where somehow, this is what confuses me, which is why a study is necessary. Somehow Americans are drawn to the Boston tragedy, and I think we all can somehow relate, or the majority of the public relates to the Boston tragedy, even though we've never been there. It's strange that I bring this to you all. It's very, very similar to this college. You could not get any dinner. Anyways. All right. So this is my last lecture. Maybe ever, but at least until further notice. And so I made it short and sweet, and hopefully get my message across to you. I've been teaching for a couple years, and this is how it ends. 7 students out of what started as about 30. And so I've learned a lot as I've taught some interested and some disinterested students. And I appreciate you coming to my last final lecture. So I'll share the excitement. There are 10 slides, no pictures, no backgrounds. And keep it simple and direct. You know, I usually decorate it with flashy, blinking lights to keep your attention. Get closer, I think, to a campus and group of students than this university, but none of you heard about it, and none of you are really probably impacted too much until it really comes directly to our campus. But I want to know why things like this happen, and that's why I study sociology. So yesterday, this is one that you know about. There was a bomb in the city of Boston. A public gathering, a sporting event was bombed, and at least 3 people are killed. The media reacted, social media reacted, the public reacted. And who is affected by this event? Who's affected by the Boston bomb?
All the witnesses got bombed.
People got hit by the shrapnel, they're affected. People got killed, they're affected. People that are there freaked out. The families. So someone's family in California who had a family who was a runner was affected because there's that family tie. Was there anyone else affected?
Like, when I found out about the little kid who was killed, that affects you as a parent too. So, I mean, it really does matter.
So in the previous slide, even though the campus was a lot the same, there was not too much of a connection there, but because of the Boston thing with the parental connection, maybe that's a stronger psychological bond there, and a tie that you make with parenting is stronger. You know, we see the kid, there's a lot of sympathy for the kid that gets killed, and very little sympathy maybe for some college working stiffs like yourself. So there can be arguments made who's affected more, but maybe all of us across America are affected. I can't remind you enough how much this is a sociological slide and a lesson. You know, the point a lot of this presentation is there's a school with a gun at it, there is a bomb in Boston, and we see these things displayed in the public through media and through reactions, and we feel things. And then I think it's very hard for students to come to a class and understand that this class, that's what we study. But you can think, do I study this in my nursing class? Do I study it in my math class? Do I study it in my criminal justice class? Criminal justice gets close, but the science of criminal